So now that we have the formulas all kind of situated with our spreadsheet, we'll do some formatting. I'll show you how to make this look really, right now it's just this numbers on a page. It doesn't really have that look to it. And a lot of times, an estimate is a way to sell your company. You're trying to sell a service. You want to make yourself look really good to a client. So you jazz up your estimate a little bit. It gives you a chance to customize it. No two estimates should be the same, exact colors or formats. You can get creative with this. Don't make this thing like rainbow colored. Every cell's a different color. Like the first time a middle school student uses PowerPoint, where every slide is a different color background. But you can customize it to a degree here. So we'll start with text formatting because I think you'll get that really quickly here. So I'm just going to highlight this whole thing here. And you can highlight multiple cells and format things simultaneously so you don't have to do each individual cell at once. So I'm going to take these here, and these are kind of a heading. They're a title. They're somewhat important. I'll go back to my Home tab here, and I'm going to make these bold by clicking bold, and I'm also going to make them underlined. So you'll notice that that's exactly the same as how you'd format something in Microsoft Word, which you guys have all, I'm sure, used Word before. Down at the bottom here, the total, this grand total down here, I'm also going to make that one bold. This time I'm going to use a key button command. So if you Control B is bold, Control U is underline, Control I is italic. So keyboard commands that you would use in other Microsoft products also work in Microsoft Excel. Then you can start getting into, maybe you want some border formatting in here. If I highlight my whole area, and then kind of next to where you bold and italic, there's this borders menu. I'm going to just for sake of demonstration, select all borders. So you'll see that fills in all of the grid lines in Excel. Right? So we're starting to look kind of like a template. Maybe we want to really highlight the fact that this is a title row. So there really shouldn't be any formulas up here. I'll delete those. Boom. This is kind of a title row going on up here. So maybe I will outline that with something a little bolder. So I can use a thick border. And then maybe I'll outline the rest of this estimate kind of in the same thick border. And then that bottom, which again is just a total row, outline that in kind of thick border. So you can see it kind of starting to take shape, and you can use borders and things like that to emphasize different areas of your spreadsheet. You can also use different colorings, different colors. So I can go back in and, maybe I'm going to color code. I have company colors, company whatever, marketing standards. So maybe I make these rows like that. You can change the color just like in anything else. This total row down here, maybe you want to make that green or whatever, different color so it stands out against the rest of them. But you can really format this kind of however you want. You could highlight these ones. Maybe if that's green, you can highlight these ones and make them yellow just for sake of coloring. So you start to get a template that becomes really easy to read now with the different colors. Does that make sense? So you can look at this really quickly, and even when you print this in grayscale or black and white, the colorings will kind of show up, and you'll be able to see the different shading. Okay, so now we had a good point brought up before with this auto sum, and does that pick up rows when you add and you delete rows to different things. So one thing you might want to do is have your Excel spreadsheet be able to check itself for errors. Right? It's always a good idea to check an estimate before you give it to a client. And, I'm going to try the spell check again just to show you guys how to do it. I'm going to push my F7. Yes, I want to start at the beginning of the sheet. And again, it's giving me our abbreviation for materials. I'll ignore that. Concrete, right? Make sure we spell concrete correct. Click OK. So I'll show you guys something that can be somewhat advanced in Excel, but I think it's a good tool to learn how to use. And for those of you that are good with computers, you'll stimulate you a little bit here. So we have our total here of everything is our $31,001. If I highlight across this, that $1 here is I'm just gonna delete that. Odd numbers driving me nuts. So $31,000 here. If I highlight across these cells here, you'll notice in the bottom of your Excel book, it says sum $31,000, right, down here. So you can highlight things, and I could highlight these, all right, $31,000, $31,000, but it gets tiresome to highlight everything and keep checking it manually, even though it's relatively quick. So if you can have the spreadsheet check itself, I think it adds a little value. It makes your life a little easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this cell down here, for example, and I'm going to make this cell equal to my material total, the total of my material totals, plus my labor total, my subcontract total, and my equipment total. And you'll see that is $31,000. So that's good. You could look at your spreadsheet really quick right now and say, all right, this number matches this number. We're good, right? No errors. But we could take this one step further, right? And have the spreadsheet check that for us. So I'm going to go back to formulas on my tab here. And we're going to use a logic statement. So we'll go into here, logical, and we're going to use an if statement. If statement. So my logic test, what I want to test is, does this equal this? And if it does, so when you put text in here, I think you need to use quotation marks, or you did at least in the previous version of Excel. So if it does equal, I'm going to say no errors found, and if it produces an error, I'm going to say recheck spreadsheet. Okay. And you can see that our logic statement tells us that now, I'm going to just expand that there are no errors found, at least in that, right? So we're only testing a small function here, but that's going to be probably the most common error. You can build things like this into your spreadsheet to check errors throughout, if you would like. And the reason that I have this text here is I wanted to show you guys some conditional formatting. So we went through and we were able to highlight things, and Excel has a function where you can do some conditional formatting to highlight cells based on values. So you could highlight negative values, you could highlight zero values. I use it in Excel gradebook to on attendance sheets to highlight absences red, so that when I look at my attendance, it pulls things. If you gave a quiz, zeros blend in really closely with 100s, but if you have Excel highlight the cells with zeros, they stand right out. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to highlight my no errors found cell. I'm going to go into conditional formatting, and I'm going to say we're going to create a new you can create new rules. You can go in through here, and there's all sorts of different sets. I'm I'm just going to say highlight cell rules equal to. So I'm going to say that for the cell that I've highlighted here, if this equals, that might not work. So that's going to look for a number. Highlight cell rules, text that contains. If you're using a numbering system, you can highlight cells if there's a number, but we're testing a text function, so we're going to use the text that contains. So text that contains, no errors found, and we're going to highlight that green, right? Green is good. And then we'll also add a, if you remember in here, you can copy some of your paste if your text, so you can paste it and get the exact text going. We can add another conditional formatting to it. So conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, text that contains, recheck spreadsheet, and we'll make that red. So now, let's say we end up with a scenario where we have, we'll just say we have another item. I'm going to copy concrete just because it's pretty quick. That's at the bottom, right? But we have an issue where you inserted that row and you were pulling your formulas down, and then your phone rang, your whatever. You answered the phone call and you got distracted. You didn't finish pulling this formula down. So these ones here are all summing that column. But this last one is one cell short, so it's not picking up that last $25,000. So the spreadsheet knows that $56,500 is what the total really is based on these yellow cells, but this green cell is only $31,000. There's a difference. It's telling you to recheck your spreadsheet. So you can go through here and double click and readjust your formulas so that you get to a situation where there's no errors. If that makes sense. I'm going to click save. Questions? Pretty cool thing with the logic statement there. Yes, no, you guys are really quiet. Alright, so again, make sure you're saving